everybody. My name's Allan. On behalf of the crew, I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Bridging Heaven Earth. You know, for all of us who are in human body, who live on this earth, a lot goes on in every day. A lot of things happen, a lot of what we consider dramas, a lot of things that we consider love, what we consider bliss, and just things go on and on and on. And yet, for all of us, we know that there's an experience that's, in a sense, beyond that, an experience of true connection, of true love. And once again, this is what the Bridging Heaven Earth show is about. I mean, on the opening and on all the flyers, you know, we talk about dedicated to the oneness. And what do we need to do as human beings to come into that experience, to really know the true experience of the infinite, of that true love, that true connection between us all, so that all the separations fall away, so that all the things that we think are different, that all the dramas we see in this life, we can take from a different perspective. We can get above the maze and see all the play here and see it as a play and play with it and enjoy it and love the magnificence of this incredible human experience. And that's what is happening for all of us at this time in history. And we have Patricia Cota Robles with us tonight, who's one of the most extraordinary spiritual teachers. I mean, she's been on the show before, and at one point we were doing a highlight video, and we were trying to pick out different sections from a lot of different people. Now, at this point, we've had over 200 guests, and we were trying to pick it out. Every time we look at Patricia's last show, it was like every sentence was like a soundbite. We didn't know which to pick out. And she talks with incredible clarity about that experience, about the experience that especially the United States has, the people in the United States, and the United States as a country, as an entity, has in the position of a country now to propel us into that new experience, or into an old new experience, or into the experience of that true love. And her life is a dedication, a moving dedication to that understanding, to that experience. She's written numerous books, Take Charge of Your Life, The Awakening, The Next Step, Stargate of the Heart, What on Earth is Going On. She's the founder and director of the New Age Study of Humanity's Purpose. It's a nonprofit organization that helps people to recognize that truth, to recognize their experience of that connectedness. And we also tonight have again with us some videos of the Lessia, the new CD, Lessia Bridging Heaven Earth, that she and I wrote a lot of the songs on. And we also have another video that the Lessia performed at a Christmas Unity telethon not too long ago. So again, it's an opportunity for us all to just settle in, let that experience carry us. Just be open to what Patricia, the information she has to share with you tonight. And I know it will really change your life. So please join me as we normally do at this time for a short meditation. If you don't know a meditation, just settle into your chair, just relax. There's an extraordinary 58.5 minutes available for you coming up right after this meditation. So please join me. Okay, thank you. So the first video we're going to have is Lessia doing All the Same Love. This song was written by Lessia and I, and it's on the new CD, Lessia Bridging Heaven Earth, and this will be performed by Lessia. Here, welcome back. We're on the set with Patricia. Welcome, Patricia. It's great to have you back again.
Thank you, Allan. It's wonderful to be here.
So, I was looking at your last newsletter, and I talked a little bit about the opening, how the United States is in a unique position. I mean, every country's in a unique position, but there's a certain role that the United States has now. Why don't you talk about that role?
Well, as you know, we've just been through a really challenging thing with our electoral system, and I think that is really a wake-up call for us in the United States. The United States was founded initially 500 years ago, you know, when we first discovered when Christopher Columbus first came to the United States, to create an archetype for a new world. You know, and the original divine plan is that this country was supposed to model to the rest of the world what it was for the family of humanity coming together as one nation under God, and all races, all nationalities, all creeds, religions coming together really for the pursuit of happiness and the highest good, unifying, modeling the oneness of life. And all of our sacred documents, the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, all say the right things. Needless to say, we've fallen very far from what the original divine blueprint and divine intent was. But that doesn't change the fact that that's what we're moving toward. We talk about our God presence within, you know, and many times that's referred to as the I am presence. And America is an anagram for the I am race. If we turn the letters around, that's what it spells. And we're moving to a point now when it's time for us to really begin modeling the original divine plan and fulfilling our divine intent. So we have a ways to go, but this situation that we've experienced, and it really doesn't have anything to do with Republicans and Democrats and the difference in ideology. What it has to do is shaking us up to the point of realizing that those old paradigms, those old archetypes of the dog eat dog and looking out for number one and the greed and all of the things, the maladies that we've experienced, whether it's discrimination, prejudice, hatred, all of the things that have created anything less than the model for the new heaven and the new earth, are obsolete. And now it's time for us to really start striving to fulfill the divine intent of this country.
Now, let me ask you something. How does it start out that the mission of the United States was to be this archetype? I mean, how do we go bad?
What actually happened since the fall of humanity, which took place eons ago, we have been struggling to get back on track. And there is a greater divine plan unfolding in this solar system. And when a solar system is created, we are breathed into denser and denser octaves. That's the process of involution. And then as we evolve up the spiral of evolution through the process, moving back to the heart of God. And from the information that's coming forth from the higher realms of illumined truth, about 500 years ago, a cosmic edict was issued that it was time for this planet to move forward up the spiral to the next octave, which is the fourth dimension, and actually now we're even moving toward the fifth dimension. And we were far from being able to do it at that particular time. And what normally happens, if a planet is not ready to move into the next higher frequency of vibration because they are so dense that they can't stand the higher frequencies, what happens is that they are left behind. The physical sun is withdrawn, and those planets, for all intents and purposes, die. Now, nothing is ever totally lost, so the souls and the substance of the planet is eventually returned to the central sun and repolarized for future systems. But the souls lose their individuality as that God presence. And even in the Bible, that was referred to as the second death, and it's the most tragic thing that can ever happen to a planet. So 500 years ago, when this divine fiat came forth that the rest of the solar system couldn't wait for us any longer, that we had to move forward, we were not in a position to be able to withstand those higher frequencies. So the spiritual hierarchies serving the earth and the God presences of humanity sent forth a clarion call invoking assistance. And from what the company of heaven has shared with us is that never in the whole of creation has that much light and love been sent forth to salvage one planet.
And the reason was?
The reason is because we got in this mess out of the greatest act of love by volunteering to take on fallen souls from other systems so that they wouldn't have to go through the second death. And that was a unique experiment that took place millions of years ago.
So the thing was is that it just in the density we were in, it was too difficult to take all this on. We weren't clear enough or strong enough over time?
Initially, when we agreed to take on those souls, that was really at the Garden of Eden state, and the earth was vibrating at a level of perfection. But when those souls came, bringing all their karmic liabilities with them, but they incarnated through normal process of birth, when it was time for them to start really experiencing some of the lessons, that negativity, instead of the souls from the Earth's evolution being able to raise them up, which is what the divine intent was and the hope was, they actually, that negativity overwhelmed the evolutions of the Earth. And there's an expression that you don't know what you don't know, and these souls had never experienced anything like the negativity that these fallen souls were bringing with them. So it really created
So they were too open in a way.
They were too open
and not discerning enough.
Yes, and unfamiliar with it. So what happened, that was really symbolically representing the Garden of Eden and the fall. And the reason Adam and Eve, Adam and Eve is an allegory, of course, and Adam, the reason it was symbolically represented that Adam came forth first is because in creation, the masculine polarity of God, our Father God, sounds a keynote that creates a matrix for the physical manifestation. Then the divine feminine, the opposite polarity, the love nature of God, the Mother God, or the Holy Spirit as we've called it, projects forth the love nature, the cohesive power of love, to draw the unformed primal light into that matrix. And so Adam came first, the power and matrix came first, and then the divine love. And of course, Eve came from the heart, not from the rib of Adam, as that was symbolically represented. And the reason it was told that Eve partook of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, it was because it was our love nature, the feminine nurturing part of us, that volunteered to take on these souls. And when these souls came, for the first time, we started experiencing the duality of negative discord, poverty, disease, and those kinds of things. So that was when we partook of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So in this 500-year period, because we had gotten in this mess out of the greatest act of love that any planet had ever experimented with before, the rest of the universe wasn't willing to give up on us that easily. So there was a dispensation granted of a 500-year period.
How did these get, is there a judge up there?
There's
layers
and layers and layers. And this would be coming, the beings that made that particular decision were from our great, great central sun of this particular solar system, and from the central sun that we know as Alpha and Omega. They agreed to have a 500-year period of grace to see if we could get our heads above the mud puddle enough to move forward into the light. And so there were several very important plans that were set into motion. One of the things is that the masculine polarity enters the earth as a tremendous shaft of light in the area of the Himalayan mountains in Tibet. And the feminine polarity enters as a tremendous shaft of light in the Andes Mountains in the area of Mount Meru near Lake Titicaca in Bolivia. And the first thing we did when we started experiencing the negativity was that we closed down our heart center so that we wouldn't feel so much. So the divine feminine polarity, which activates our right brain and our heart center, began to withdraw, and that's what caused our right brains to become almost dormant. Our spiritual brain centers atrophied, our pituitary, pineal, and hypothalamus glands, and the ganglionic centers at the base of our brain, which caused the crown chakra to close. And that perpetuated us using our power center without the balance of love. And that's where we got into all of these situations of dominance and aggression and all of those imbalances. So one of the most important things when that happened, the portal for the Divine Feminine in South America also closed. So one of the most important things in that 500-year period of grace is that we had to start drawing the Divine Feminine, the love nature of God, back into the planet. So a plan was set into motion to start drawing the focus to the Divine Feminine. And that's why Mother Mary began appearing in the form of the Virgin of Guadalupe to Juan Diego about 500 years ago. And that was the outer world symbol of the Divine Feminine that could be related to the consciousness of the people in that area in South America at the time. And so when she began appearing to Juan Diego, the whole consciousness and focus on the Divine Mother started flowing through that and started opening that particular portal. Another thing that occurred is that we needed to have a model of a new archetype of humanity living together. And that's why Christopher Columbus was given the divine revelation to come and search for the new world. And I know there's a lot of negative press about Christopher Columbus, but Christopher Columbus was one of the embodiments of Saint Germain. And the reason there was so much negativity, needless to say, there was havoc wreaked on the North American continent, the Americas, when that group of people came. But the reason for that was that those souls that came with him, that nobody really believed he was going to survive and make it. So what the Company of Heaven has said is that they literally emptied the prisons and the mental institutions and sent that as his crew to come. So that motley group, when they came into the force field of the Americas, brought a lot of dense consciousness that was willing to act out a lot of depravity, which we experienced. Now, the flame of freedom, the violet flame, as many people are aware of now, the largest portal for that is in the area of the Caribbean islands. So it was not, and the whole Florida and that whole area. So it was not by chance that the flotilla, the Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria, were magnetized first into Santo Domingo in that area. The flame of freedom was anchored in St. Germain's heart flame and Christopher Columbus's heart flame. And he came, and when they landed on Florida, it expanded through the United States of America, creating the chalice for the matrix, for the model of the new world, which was to be the I Am race. And the I Am race, of course, was to consist of all races, all nationalities, all creeds, all genders, everything. The family of humanity, everything that our pledges say, our documents say. Now, we fell far from that because of our wayward human egos, but it doesn't change the fact that that is the divine archetype. Now, because it was clear that our egos probably would mess things up, another plan at the same time was set into motion, and that's when Nostradamus was given, through divine inspiration, the unfolding of what was going to occur in the new world and what would happen if we allowed our human egos to go rampant. And that was the whole consciousness that ended in 1999 with the Holocaust, nuclear war, and all of those kinds of things. And as far as the prophecies go, of course, a fulfilled negative prophecy is a failed prophecy. The only reason those prophecies are ever given is to show us what our course of direction is and to inspire us to correct that and avert the cataclysmic negativity. Now, in addition to that, another thing that was an important part of that was that activating our spiritual brain centers to awaken our crown chakra to that state of enlightenment that we've referred to as Christ consciousness or divine consciousness, whatever terminology. So that's when the whole Renaissance started appearing on the scene of life. And it began in Italy and expanded through all levels of creativity and culture and art and dance and all of those things, moving us from really the archaic dark ages into a new level of civilized experience. Now, even with all of those plans in motion, it wasn't clear that we were going to be able to make it in 500 years. We've been struggling for a very long time since then. So another clarion call went out to the universe, and what happened is that legions...
Now, who makes these calls? I mean, is it like the heartbeat of the people on Earth that they need the help? I mean, it's
yes,
like a collective consciousness?
It is like the collective...
God help us here.
Yes, it is. It's the God self, the divinity within
Just
the heart
out.
of humanity, plus the collective company of heaven, the spiritual hierarchy, angelic presences, all of those beings that are serving the Earth. And even the sun beings that are aware of the problem are asking for assistance from higher and higher realms. And what took place at that time is that a dispensation was granted to allow cosmic, galactic, divine beings from suns beyond suns and galaxies beyond galaxies. They volunteered to embody on Earth, thinking that because they weren't caught up in the negative consciousness for so long, that even though they would come in with the band of forgetfulness and not instantly remember, they would begin to awaken and be able to lift up the rest of humanity.
How's it going?
Well, for a very For a period of time, that was allowed very, very cautiously because of what happened to the Earth evolution. Many of these beings had never experienced anything like the negativity on Earth either. So for 400 years, actually, they were allowed to come in very, very slowly and to see how they could work. And they were probably the avatars and Buddhas and beings, in addition to lots of beings that we would never have known about.
Yeah.
But at the latter part of the 1800s, it was reevaluated, and it was determined by, again, the Company of Heaven, that that experiment was succeeding beyond the greatest expectations of heaven. So literally the floodgates opened, and these souls have come in by the millions in every conceivable corner on the planet. That's why in the last 100 years it looks like we're having this tremendous population explosion. But this is not going to take us down the tubes. You know, it would not be allowed if it was going to take us down to the tubes. It also just explains our tremendous quantum shifts in technology and everything that's happened, from barely discovering the light bulb to what we're doing now, combustion engines in the latter part of the 1800s, the telephone, electricity, to what we're doing now. There is no logical evolutionary sequence that would have moved us that quantum shift in consciousness in 100 years. But it's that these souls are awakening and reaching up, tapping the causal body of God in higher and higher octaves of perfection.
You know, the question would come up, I mean, it's extraordinary information, obviously. How do you get this information? Do you consider a channel? Do you consider that you just get it and know it? Or, you know, you remember? How do you experience it?
I don't consider it channeling. My experience of it is that probably the easiest way to describe it is that it's like going through the near-death experience. When people pass through the tunnel, consistently they report this, into the octave of light. Well, that tunnel is the psychic astral realm, the sea of negativity that surrounds the planet. And once they get through that, into the light, they say that they begin to know that they know that they know, and there's this open heart and mind telepathic communication with the legions of light in those dimensions. Now, when they come back into the physical plane, they start losing the specifics, but they remember that there's this wealth of knowledge within them that they just can't access in this denseness. Well, as we are awakening, we're understanding now that we don't have to die to have this experience. We absolutely have the ability to reach into that dimension, communicate just like you and I are, open, maybe without even the words, open heart and mind, telepathic communication. And in this dimension, this information that I'm sharing with you is common knowledge in the halls of records and information from the temples and the schools of learning. And it's available to every single soul. There's no, I'm not unique or special or different.
And you access it through what means? Is it just that you know it? Because, I mean, there are certain things that I just know that I can't really say how I know it. I mean, it's just...
Sure. And initially it was through personal spiritual experiences and meditation and things like that. But once we begin really recognizing it's an open, constant contact. So the information, sometimes it's just awakening to the remembrance, and that's...
It's extremely specific.
Yes.
I mean, you know, as opposed to some other information that's
yes.
not as specific.
Yes.
And we've had a lot, you know, we've had over 200 guests on the show, and you are extremely specific, you know, as opposed to others who have extraordinary experiences in other, you know, kind of different spokes on the wheel.
Yeah. The specific information is being given by the spiritual hierarchy at this time as a beacon of hope to help put this bigger picture in perspective. Because we are multidimensional beings that are existing on many dimensions simultaneously. And this physical realm is the least real of all of the dimensions we abide in, and it is the very last dimension to reflect change. So this information is being given to us at this time to encourage us and to inspire us to enhance what we know. It's not ever designed to disprove, to say we're wrong or our belief systems are wrong, but rather to enhance what we know and get a bigger picture so that we can still be functioning from this level of
Bridge Heaven
of
Earth.
hope. Absolutely. Right.
Okay, well, on that note, the old Bridge Heaven Earth segue. Why don't we do the second Lessia video, which is Sunrise, and this was also written by Lessia and myself, and it's on the new CD, Lessia Bridging Heaven Earth. And this was performed by Lessia at and friends of hers at the Christmas Unity Telethon, December 2000, just recently on KYT Channel 3 in Santa Barbara. So, Lessia? Hi, we're back on the set with Patricia. Hi, Patricia. So why don't you talk a little, you were in Florida during the presidential election, and it has a real significance now. Why don't you talk about that?
Well, it's interesting. We had, the election was on Tuesday, and the next day I left to go to Florida to speak at the Universal Lightworkers Conference, which happened to be in Palm Beach County, which was really fascinating that there were all of these light workers from all over drawn into that particular area. And at the same time on the weekend, that was the weekend that involved the 11th of November, which was the 11/11 too. So there was a lot of light.
This is 11/11/2000.
2000,
when
right.
the election in the United States took place.
Yes, right. And in Miami-Dade, there was another large conference of the indigenous American Indians having their particular conference, a light conference as well.
So Florida was really balancing the darkness and the light. Huh?
Yeah, there was really it was fascinating that there was so much going on. But one of the important things I'd just like to really stress about this is that this wake-up call isn't for us just to get cynical and callous about the kinds of things that are going on. It is really to have us realize that our old systems are obsolete and are no longer serving the highest good. And whether we're talking about the environment, we need to recognize, one of the things that Buckminster Fuller said is that when you want to make a change, you don't change the existing, you create a new model and make the old obsolete. And the consciousness, the corporate consciousness of dog eat dog, or the fact that someone has to lose in order for someone to win, or in order to have enough money, we have to trash the environment, all of those things are based in the lower human ego, lack of knowledge and understanding.
Yeah, feeling separate,
right,
feeling disconnected.
Right. That we are all one, and we can absolutely move forward in this win-win situation. But what we need to realize is that because we are all one, people that are creating this, they are also part of us. And instead of having it us against them, whether it's against the gun control or abortion rights or corporate things or environmental things or whatever, what we need to realize is those of us that are awakening and recognizing that we are all one, we need to draw these souls into the divinity of our heart flames and invoke their God presences to take command. Every single person in any position at national, state, and local levels, politically in government or whatever, has a God presence, and we need to lift them out of that fear. There was incredible corruption associated with this, but I think there probably always has been in our political system. We know that there's a lot of that goes along, the boys will be boys kind of consciousness. So what we have to do is create a new archetype of this win-win situation, realizing that we are supposed to be financially free. We are supposed to have the abundance. But for these corporations to be paying 12 cents a week to people in sweatshops and then selling a product for $120 or something for the shoes or whatever it is.
Sneakers are famous for that. Yeah.
Right. While the CEOs are getting literally tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars a year.
Doesn't sound fair.
It's just totally out of balance. It's not okay,
Right.
And the same thing that's happening now, downsizing, putting thousands and thousands of families in jeopardy while hiring CEOs for hundreds of millions of dollars. That is an old, obsolete archetype. So we have to move into that win-win situation, and that is happening. There are people that are doing that. There are corporations that are doing into profit sharing and really enhancing and benefiting their employees as much as they're benefiting themselves. So we need to do that. We need to also realize that everybody's doing the best they can according to their wisdom. The people that are making these decisions and even doing the incredible manipulation, for instance, what's going on in California with the energy, it's a manipulation so that people will become fearful enough that they'll say, gosh, maybe we should go into the protected lands and start digging for oil and do all of this.
Nuclear again and the whole thing. Starting, little by little.
And it's fear-based, and it's designed specifically to create enough fear. It's all manipulated to create enough fear. Back east this winter, they've talked about, this gas shortage, and so they raised prices ridiculously. They had a report on the news that they have had unprecedented profits, $7 billion in 3 months.
Well, even the companies that are talking about filing for bankruptcy, they have parent companies that they're funneling all the money through, and they're making tons of money, and somehow the money's leaving the company. Yeah, it's really trippy,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it's an obsolete consciousness, you know, that, and the thing about it is, like what we're witnessing in our stock market now, that is not going to succeed any longer. And people that try to perpetuate that, if they have to fail, then that's what's going to happen. And that's what we're beginning to see that's going on. You know, those old paradigms are crumbling, and it's going to be the win-win situation. So what we need to understand is that we have reached a critical mass as far as the shift of consciousness to move into the light. This planet and all her life are absolutely moving forward into the light. The decision is, are we going to do this willingly, lovingly, or kicking and screaming? Because we are moving into the light. And so if we consciously say, okay, how can we create a win-win situation? How can we create love, whether it's the Middle East or the United States or whatever? You know, gun control is the consciousness of needing to have weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah, to protect yourself.
Yes.
I mean, you need a rocket launcher to protect your home.
Right.
I mean, from what?
Right. And we need some balance. You know, in most states at this time, convicted felons, mass murderers, terrorists can walk into these private gun shows with a handful of money and walk out with an arsenal full of weapons with no background checks.
They could probably walk to their corner.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But you know, it's interesting because when we talk about it on the show, we talk about, I mean, you can't deal with all, you know, it's like squeezing a balloon. You can't deal with all the specific issues in a way. But what we try to do, and when we talk about like the show, the purpose of the show is to put out that vibrational love. And then all of a sudden, the Berlin Wall is down.
That's right.
You know, there's just like the 100th monkey or just a certain level has been reached. And then you don't know, how did the Berlin Wall fall? You know, there's no reason.
Right.
But it's just a certain level of energy. And I know that's what your life's work is about.
Yes.
Is to get that energy to that level.
Right. And that's what exactly what I'm saying about creating a new archetype. So, and the way we do that is by envisioning the new heaven and the new earth. So we observe, you know, we need to be informed. We observe all of these totally out of balance old archetypes that are trying to be energized. And we say, okay, what do we want instead of that?
But can we know what we want unless we experience in some way, which all the spiritual paths are about, that experience of the true love, of the oneness, of what people call God? I mean, or else it's just like mind trips circling each other.
Right. And see, we're not always going to know. I mean, we're going to be evolving, and so we're not even going to be glimpsing that true oneness, probably. You know, I mean, it's going to get more blissful and experiential as we move along. So we're going to experience more and more of the wonder of it all. But what we need to do at this particular time is say, okay, how can I be the greatest force of life for the highest good of all concerned, and genuinely have that be our divine intent? And then we're going to start getting some visions, you know, and when we envision what we want, we can envision that we want fairness, that we want prosperity and abundance, we want people to revere life, you know, so we envision what heaven on earth would be to us to the best of our ability and the best of our understanding. But then we also leave it open to the greatest good and the highest good for adjustments and things, because we don't know what's right for every single person. You know, the thing about it is part of this experiment is that the light workers that have come in, plus the awakening humanity, we have volunteered in this lifetime to delve into the depths of human suffering, because the universal law is, as I am lifted up, all life is lifted up with me. And if we had come into the happy, superficial energies, when we lift up, we awaken and lift up, we lift up from there. So probably all of the spiritual people you communicate with, certainly the ones I communicate with too, you can just hear horror stories of the kinds of things that they've been through in their lives. And we haven't done this because we were sadistic and masochistic, but rather because we knew that if we delved into those experiences, whether it's dysfunctional relationships or health issues or family problems or whatever, when we awaken and pull ourselves up, we pull up everybody else that's ever had that experience as well. But what's critical for us to understand is that we have reached the moment now with the dawning of this new millennium. We've been as miserable as we needed to be. We've connected with as much pain as we needed to connect with.
We've gone low enough.
Yes, and now it's time to lift up into the bliss and wonder and joy. And we have to do that by opening our hearts. And that is what is now the next facet of the unfolding divine plan. There are new, previously unknown frequencies of divine love that are now available to flow into this planet to help shift the consciousness of all of those that are still in their fear-based, fragmented human ego, that think that there isn't enough, that we have to hurt somebody to have what we want or take it away from them or whatever, so that they can start feeling safe enough to trust enough to let go of those old dysfunctional behavior patterns. And that's what we need to do. We need to start tapping these new frequencies of love, this assistance. We are literally receiving more assistance than ever before in the history of time. And we are going to make it. You know, we are absolutely going to succeed.
So you say the first step is to have that intent.
Yes, to have that intent and to really say, if I had no time and frame limitations, no family limitations, no intelligent limitations or whatever, and I could be the greatest, most powerful force of light, not ego or self-aggrandizement, but just the most effective, what would I be doing and who would I be? And the most glorious vision we can possibly come up with is going to be scratching the surface compared to who we really are.
The whole thing is unreasonable. So you know, the experience of the infinite is greater than reason. It's greater than we can imagine.
It certainly is. But it's a step, and it's a place to start. When people can't fathom what they can do to make a difference, the collective force of our consciousness is the most powerful force on the planet. That's why there's so many global meditations and things going on. So connecting to the divine intent of heaven on earth and say, I want to be an instrument for that. I want to be a vehicle for that. It's as simple as saying every morning when we get up that we ask the God presences of every man, woman, and child to fill them with the divine intent of heaven on earth, to reveal to them the reverence for all life, the oneness of all life. Making that call from our bedrooms in the morning creates an opening through which this light can pour into the planet. And we can be incredibly effective with the most simple steps. We don't have
because it's just a question of an open heart, in whatever way you would describe it, right?
Right. We have to be an instrument. God needs a body. In order for something to manifest in the physical plane, the light to create that has to be drawn through the divinity of someone's heart that lives in the physical plane. But once we invoke that light, the floodgates open, and we can be that instrument. The Company of Heaven has said, genuinely, through the dark ages that we have been through, there were times when there were 1 or 2 people on the planet drawing light effectively enough to warrant the salvation of the planet. I mean, that's incredible. Wow. And now there are millions doing that. So our victory is assured. There's no turning back. Isn't that exciting?
That is very exciting. And yet we still have to do it a day at a time, or a breath at a time. I mean, in human time and in human, when you're dealing in the duality, as you're talking about, it still has to be done on a, in a way, on a consistent basis.
Absolutely, constantly. It is a very scientific process. We're talking about energy, vibration, and consciousness. And as we're understanding now about quantum physics, just very simply, quantum physics, for instance, when an electron is vibrating at this particular frequency and it's raising up in vibration, the second it reaches 51% of the higher vibration, it disappears here and reappears here. And that's what's happening on the planet. The second the thoughts, words, actions, and feelings of the collective consciousness of humanity is positive and constructive and energizing heaven on earth, we will manifest tangibly heaven on earth. And that can be with the next breath. For all we know. We never know how close we are. But we need to work, what I tell people is we need to work as though it could, with the enthusiasm and joy, as though it could be with the next breath, but with the tenacity that if it takes 1,000 years, I'm going to not give up for 1,000 years.
It's all we can do in each moment.
Right.
I mean, really, I mean, that's the truth of it. I mean, once we see it that way.
That's true.
So, I mean, we're going to proceed, and there is, in truth, there's no time and space anyhow.
Right. That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's
So,
right.
I mean, we're taking the infinite and cutting a piece out and saying, in this piece, this is how it looks, and there's a beginning and end to the piece, but it's really, I mean, that's like part of the illusion here.
Right. Well, the good news is that we absolutely succeeded with the 500-year shift, and we have...
Should we be proud of ourselves?
Well, we still have a long way to go. We still have a long way to go, but the good news is, I mean, that's those actual frequencies have been reached to the point where every man, woman, and child evolving on the earth and the earth herself are now having the opportunity to move into the higher spirals of evolution.
And some people have said that if people, for some reason, free will or however these kinds of things in the illusion, the way I would look at it work, is that if they don't choose to do that, they would leave the planet at this point.
Yes, we have the free will not to do it. But there was a point when some of the energies were so dense that even if they wanted to, they probably weren't going to make the shift in time. But because of the tremendous influx of light, really specifically accelerated since harmonic convergence in August of 1987, it has been greatly quantum leaps moving forward. And now we've reached the critical mass of awakening light worker consciousness, so that even though there may be the 49% resisting and not going to, they have the opportunity to move forward anyway.
Right. And they're affected by it. I mean, we use gross terms, but I mean, if that vibration of love is getting stronger, everyone's affected by it.
Sure, oh, absolutely.
I mean, everybody's internal Berlin walls are coming down slowly but surely.
Right.
And it's just, how we look at time. I mean, who knows how we look at time?
Yes. And even the most depraved person on the planet still has that spark of divinity, and they've just given up because of the life experiences. They don't, it's kind of like the whole consciousness of Murphy's Law. People believe that if they believe Murphy's Law, which is if anything can go wrong, it will, then they protect themselves from being disappointed. What they don't realize is that they're creating that by having that belief system. One of my patients said
You're
one
a therapist also,
yes,
right? I mean, a practicing
yes,
therapist.
Marriage and family counselor. And one of my patients said that he thought Murphy was an optimist. I mean, that's how, how bad he was.
That must have been a tough session, boy. I was like, wow, you must have walked out of that session, boy. Is time up yet? No, I just got here, Patricia. Oh, really? Well, this is... Yeah, no, it can be very heavy if you feel disconnected. I mean, we are hurtling through space on a ball. We know this thing is enormous. And if we don't feel somehow connected, I mean, the times in everyone's life where you don't feel really connected, it is not blissful. No.
And when they're not connected, I mean, the whole negativity process, they genuinely, through every fiber of their being, believe that that's their survival mechanism, that they have to do that in order to survive. That's why, as I mentioned earlier, that
they don't feel love. I mean, how can
you...
Yeah.
They don't.
No, they don't.
And we need to take them, envision them coming into the divinity of our heart flame, totally protected from any outside negativity, so that they can just be bathed in that nurturing mother's love, whether we're male or female. That heart center is that nurturing love, until they can feel safe enough to start taking down the walls and trusting again.
Yeah, well, I think that's happening, and I think it's happening just because that love vibration is getting stronger. Right. So it is affecting people, and they don't know why or how. It's just their hearts are opening.
Right. And so if we can consciously accept responsibility to start creating the new visions of heaven on earth, which, as I said, would mean that everybody has food and shelter and is living in joy, and this isn't, even with divine government, there's all this negative stuff out there about the one world government. Divine government is not one world government.
It's not like that at all.
No, it's every country.
Right. Why countries? Countries are a real piece of work too. I mean, it's all stupid.
Yes.
With all due respect to all the things that we use to separate us out is completely, you draw a line and, that's yours.
Right.
It's completely insane.
Right. That is. And yet there's.
And then religions, we'll get into that. That's a whole other show, which we talk about every show.
But there are wonderful diversities and wonderful cultures and things that we need to love and revere about each other instead of fearing and things. That it would be really boring.
There are a lot of flavors of ice cream, but how much weight do we give like the different flavors?
Right.
And we give it so much weight that it's divisive.
Right.
And that's the problem. Not that we have it, and not that we have a lot of ice cream, or that you're wearing purple and I'm wearing my usual black cloud tugboat. You know what I mean? That's the problem, or whatever you call it here, is that we use all these things to divide us. That the French are not the English, they're not the. Rather than experiencing the one, and then, you're wearing purple and I'm wearing, and who cares? So, but that's breaking down. You can see that happening.
Right.
But even if we talk about countries, we're kind of opening the door to that division.
But initially, it'll be a process, though. We're going to certainly get to that point where there's no such thing as that kind of separation. But in the meantime, to have governments that are genuinely working for the highest good of all concerned in their countries, and then jointly sharing their unique gifts and talents and diversities and cooperating with everyone else.
Yeah, no, I understand, but
this.
it is the fact that if it's your, for the best good of the country, then it's as opposed to the other country, then you're going to get conflict. It has to, because it's not high enough up.
Yes. But there'll be
it's like the process.
It'll be a process. And it's the highest good for those in your country in cooperation and harmony with the highest good for everyone else. Because our divine plans do not conflict. It is never going to be my divine plan that one thing happened that involves me, and your divine plan that another thing happens that involves me. It's like in relationships with couples, when someone really is feeling that the relationship is complete, it's never going to be that the divine plan for one person is to stay in the relationship and the other one to leave it, because that would mean that somebody's divine plan was totally conflicting. So if it is truly the divine plan for one person to move away, it's also the other person's divine plan, whether they like it or not, so saying
Those
for the highest good, yes,
you must see it all the time.
Yes, but saying for the highest good of all concerned, we kind of then release it. It's like letting go and letting God, turning it over to our God self to really orchestrate the specifics of what it is. We just have to hold the original divine intent.
And we're doing it more and more.
Yes, absolutely.
And you travel the world, holding free workshops and free seminars and all that. And do you see more and more people coming into a recognition of that and being drawn to that message and that vibration?
Absolutely. My travels, and I've been to a lot of places around the world, have absolutely confirmed what I shared earlier about these incredibly illumined souls coming into every conceivable corner. And throughout South America and Africa and the Soviet Union, and we've been to Thailand and Italy, different places all over the world. It's happening everywhere where these souls are awakening and saying, wait a minute, we don't have to do this anymore. We have choices, and we can create a constructive life for ourselves, and even if it's individually in their personal family lives or collectively and globally, we're really doing this.
Well, again, we seem to have come to the end of this hour, so thanks, Patricia, and thank you all for coming. And if you want any information about where Patricia's free seminars are, workshops, about her newsletter, Allan, 805-687-2053, and all your calls and all your emails are just so valuable to us. Keep them coming. We love your inspiration. Thank you. God bless you. Good night.